All right, hello friends, welcome to Talking Sports at Work. I know I've been away for a while and I apologize for that for anybody who actually missed me. I'm not going to get into all of that, but the good news is we're back and maybe at the perfect time because here we are with our first mock draft for the year. I'm going to try to put a couple of these together. I tell you, I've worked really hard on this one, honestly, and I think it came together pretty well. I think it looks good, and yeah, I hope it's pretty accurate, and you guys know how it can be. I'll have some points to make along the way, and we'll see how it goes. Also, speaking of new things and looking good, as you can see here on... we've got our brand new logo that just put together yesterday, I believe. I felt like I had to do something new with the new Titans logo and theme and everything, which I've still got the flag, but I've got the t-shirt. Got the logo, and yeah, hope you guys like that. Hope you guys like the mock draft. I'm just going to dive right in because otherwise I'll keep talking for God knows how long. All right, let's see how it goes here. So, it's our 2026 NFL mock draft by yours truly, obviously. So, first round order, we all know this. I don't know why I even did this page, if I'm being honest, but this is the first round order. Now, I'm probably not going to do all of it in one video, just because I know I can talk a lot anyway. So maybe I'll split it up by sections. I don't know. Maybe I'll do the top 10 first, or maybe I'll do these first 8 and just do them equally. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But we're going to dive right in because we know who has the first overall pick, and we all know who's going first overall as well. So there's really not a ton to think about here with this. I mean, it's Fernando Mendoza. Now, your feelings on him might, whatever they are, he's not, one of those sure can't miss kind of guys. He's not your Andrew Luck, Trevor Lawrence, John Elway kind of prospect, obviously, but he is clearly the top quarterback in this draft, and it's it's been the way the Raiders are going to go all along. You know what? I think, because what I didn't take into consideration whenever I was building this little presentation is where I was going to put myself. And yeah, I'm going to put myself down here. Maybe that's a little bit more out of the way. There we go. How's that? Yeah? I don't know. Alright, but yeah, Fernando Mendoza is number 1. So really the draft starts at number 2 for most of us who are, interested in how things are going to go. And I put this together yesterday, and yesterday, it seemed pretty clear. It was going to be Arvell Reese. I saw today, though, just today, there was a slight change where David Bailey is now the favorite to go number 2 overall. But I think either way, we all know it's going to be one of those two guys. Just whoever Aaron Glenn and the Jets front office people like the best. That's the direction they're likely to go. Now, is that a certainty? No, it's not. It's not like it is with Fernando Mendoza at 1. I mean, they could go Sonny Styles, the super athletic linebacker, to try to, have somebody to build the defense around and be the leader. They could go Caleb Downs, who is probably the best player in the draft. I know the combine performance was maybe a little disappointing, but that shit's overblown. We all know that, and I'm going to dive more into that as well later as well. The combine should only really be maybe 10-15% of your evaluation. What you really need to look for is what you're going to see from them actually playing football. And actually playing football, Caleb Downs is a monster, and we'll see him soon. But Arvell Reese, man, he's played off-ball linebacker. The Titans drafted a guy last year who did that a lot and was a converted linebacker who kind of moved to the edge defensive end position, but he didn't have nearly this kind of athletic talent or potential. This is more of a Micah Parsons type. If the Jets don't take him, and then if the Cardinals somehow don't take him as well, I would love nothing more. That would be the ideal situation if he just falls into Tennessee's lap, but I don't see it happening. Either way, this is going to most likely be either Arvell Reese, or if the Jets are more comfortable with a pure, ready-to-go pass rusher out of the gates, then it would be David Bailey. Number 3. Now, for the Cardinals, this one is a little bit more interesting because there are a number of ways they could go. With a new offensive-minded head coach, they may want to go ahead and secure the offensive line. They've got Paris Johnson, whatever his name is. They've got the left tackle, and all of the top prospects in this draft on the offensive line are right tackles, which is it's a very strange, unique draft in that respect. So they very well could go Mauagoa, the tackle out of Miami here. That was sort of the popular pick for a long time, but now we've seen it kind of switch, and I'm going to give them David Bailey. I think the most likely scenario right now, unless one of these two teams just doesn't like one of these guys, I think New York picks one, Arizona picks the other. Because right now it feels like there are, maybe 5 truly elite prospects at the top of this draft, and what's really interesting and kind of puts the Titans in a tough situation is that so many of those guys, the majority of them, play kind of non-premium positions. You've got these 2 edge rushers that are, at a premium, picking in the top 5 position. But then you've got the running back in Jeremiah Love. You've got Caleb Downs, who's a safety, and you've got Sonny Styles, who's an off-ball linebacker. I think those are the closest thing to can't-miss prospects that we have. I think those guys are sort of like in their own tier in terms of prospects in this draft. And if you want to put Mendoza in there, I probably would not. But if you're factoring in positional value, then yeah, you could put him in there as well. But so the Cardinals don't overthink it. They just go for the elite player at the important position. And and that is honestly the worst case scenario for my Tennessee Titans. And those of you who, I guess I haven't done a lot of the podcast at all lately. But if you read my articles on Titan Sized, I just wrote one a couple of weeks ago. You'll know how I feel about the Jeremiah Love thing. Look, I get it. It's exciting. I live close to, I live right next to the Georgia line. So I know the excitement that comes from an elite running back prospect. I have a lot of friends who are Falcons fans. There are so many reasons not to take him. I mean, and if you go to the Titan Sized website, you'll find my article there. I wrote, a good bit going over the various reasons why not to take him. And the biggest reason is because, and I've said this for years, and it's not anything new or original, but if you earned a pick inside the top 10, then most likely you are not in a position to spend that pick on a running back. An elite running back prospect is dependent on so many other things, more than so many other positions. You have to have at least a decent offensive line. You have to have at least a decent threat of a passing game. You have to have a decent coaching staff. Now I believe that Tennessee has the quarterback. I believe we now have the coach, which, you can thank many of us at Titan Sized and in the fan base as well for, we were pushing Robert Saleh all the way back in October, and we managed to get him. So I do believe we've got the coach, and I don't want to get off topic here, but you've got to have so many things in place for that running back to thrive. And if you don't, then you're almost wasting that pick, because if you draft a running back at 4 overall, he's immediately going to become one of the highest paid running backs in the NFL. I didn't even think about that. I heard that on Get Up earlier this morning. I didn't even consider that factor. But he's immediately going to become like the 7th highest paid running back in the NFL, because it's all based on draft position. So you're losing the value that you normally get from drafting a young player. That's out the window. The Titans' offensive line right now is in no position to really do something like this. I mean, there are so many question marks, and that's kind of brought up a lot of issues in and of itself as well, and made me a little bit concerned about. It's the first thing that's really made me concerned about Brian Daboll, because I remember what was their biggest problem when he was in New York. It seemed like the one thing they just couldn't get right was the offensive line, and now here we are, and it seems like they are not prioritizing that nearly enough. As of right now, we don't have a starting caliber center or right guard, and we've got an average at best left tackle, and we've got a good left guard, and we believe a really good young right tackle. But that's it. I mean, you've got two big, massive question marks on the offensive line. You've got a second-year quarterback who doesn't have a true number one receiver. You've got a new coaching staff. It's just not the position to take a running back. And I'll try to get off of this soon, but I actually went back and I looked at the last, in the last like 20-some drafts, how many running backs were taken in the top 10. And almost all of them were bad picks. Even the ones that turned out to be great players, your Christian McCaffrey, your Saquon Barkley, both of those great players, they didn't really reach their potential until they left the team that drafted them. Bijan Robinson has now become one of the best running backs in the NFL, but he's going on to now his third head coach since he's been there, and his second GM, and really how much has he contributed to them winning? Not much, as great as he is, because there were so many other factors that weren't right. And now, once they finally are getting into a place where it feels like maybe he can thrive, he's about to be due a record-breaking contract if they want to keep him. So, I mean, there are just so many reasons, and I hear all this bullshit on TV about, oh, he's more than just a running back, and they say that about all the top running back prospects. Nobody's putting a running back in the slot, by the way, unless you're motioning him, or you're just doing some kind of tricky shit. If he were an actual slot receiver, if he were able to do that, that's the position he'd play. I mean, sure, Jeremiah Love has these qualities, but, I mean, there's really only one, maybe two guys in the NFL, not talking about prospects, actually in the NFL, who could legitimately line up at receiver and be successful. And it's Christian McCaffrey, and I'd say maybe the other one's Jahmyr Gibbs, although I don't even know that he has the route running ability. But it's just there's so many reasons why that would be a mistake. And look, if they take him, I'll get excited about it. It's hard not to. As a fan, you want that exciting home run hitting player, right? But the truth is, it's just not a smart pick. And going back to what I was saying, like over the last however many drafts, there was Darren McFadden, there was Trent Richardson, there was Ashton Genty is a perfect example last year, was drafted to a team that had no business taking a running back there, and now he's going to be starting over at square one with a new coach and a new quarterback, and hopefully they can start putting pieces together. But even next year, I think their ceiling is 500. So anyway, I mean, the one example that I found of a guy that turned out to be a good pick that was a running back in the top 10 over the last 25 or so years was Ezekiel Elliott. And honestly, the only reason why that was really successful is because they had a franchise quarterback fall into their laps. They just got lucky in the fourth round of that draft with Dak Prescott. Because Tony Romo was near the end of his career and was already going to get hurt. He got hurt. What happens if they don't draft Dak Prescott? Ezekiel Elliott is not a good pick either. I mean, he's no different than Leonard Fournette or anyone else. But I mean, he's a really, really, really good back. He was. But without that quarterback, even with the offensive line they had, I don't think he's anything. Anyway, I've spent the entirety of this so far telling you the reasons why I don't think the Titans should spend the 4th overall pick on a running back. And the truth is, again, this is the worst case scenario right now because the top 2 edge rushers are off the board. I don't know that this is a draft where many teams are going to be looking to trade up into the top 5. Now that would be a great situation for us if we could trade back, but I don't know that that's very realistic either. So I went in the direction of Carnell Tate. Now, I get it. He's not among those elite guys that I mentioned, but he's been the number 1 receiver in the consensus number 1 receiver in this draft for the last several months. And I know everything changes once we get into the combine and pro days, and everybody starts looking at how these guys perform in shorts and a t-shirt, and everybody starts overthinking things. And I get it. Carnell Tate was also, he was sort of looked at as kind of the second fiddle there to first Marvin Harrison and then to Jeremiah Smith. But I tell you, this guy, in his play and who he is as a player and in that situation, reminds me so much of Justin Jefferson. I mean, this is like, that would be my comp for him. I mean, if you guys remember that great LSU offense, Justin Jefferson was, always the most reliable receiver like Carnell Tate, but there was this other young guy who really had the potential who was coming up, and that was Jamar Chase. So Justin Jefferson ends up falling to the 20s, I think, or the late teens, and they got, one of the top 2-3 receivers in the NFL out of it. I'm not saying that Carnell Tate's going to be that, but I'm saying he's got all of those same traits, characteristics. He's got the same size, the same route running ability, the same production in college, and, as of right now, if that's how the first 3 picks fall, and if no one's looking to trade up, I think that's the best way the Titans can go. Is it's all this bullshit about give a running back to your second-year quarterback. That's good Lord. When we don't even have the offensive line, that's not the way to go. So I say give him a guy who is the most likely in this draft to be a true, legitimate number 1 receiver. And I understand, the retaining Calvin Ridley, that surprised a lot of people. I like the decision. That maybe makes it less likely that we do something like this, but I also think it really doesn't change it because, Ridley's 32 now. I mean, and the other guys that we have are second-year players in DK and Isle Manor who we're hoping to see big leaps from, but we can't expect that necessarily. And then, a 5'8", really talented slot receiver. But if you give Cam Ward a number 1 receiver, I think the most important thing you can do for a young quarterback is protect him, which we're going to have to get that guard and center positions figured out later in the draft, I assume. But next to that, I think the best thing you could do is give him an elite weapon to throw it to, and this is the guy who fits the bill. Jordan Tyson's intriguing, but that injury stuff has got to worry you, and honestly, even without the injury stuff, I don't even see him as being necessarily better than Tate. So, anyway, I've spent way too much time on the Titans, I know, but come on, what did you expect here? Moving on to the New York Giants. Now, we're going to say John Harbaugh does a John Harbaugh type thing. The best offensive lineman is sitting there on the board still at their pick at number 5. They could, they've got, what's his name, as sort of a, he's a below average starter at right tackle. So Malago could come in and start right away. He could kick inside to guard to start his career. But either way, this is a guy that John Harbaugh would absolutely love and know how to deploy, and could be there finally the number 2 thing that they've needed to fix this offensive line that's been plaguing them for years. And it's a shame because they've had one of the best left tackles in the game throughout that time, but they haven't had anybody else on the other end, and the interior's been a bit of a mess. So yeah, I think certainly before also John Harbaugh thinks about a running back in the top 5, he would think we got to fix this friggin' offensive line. And so that's the way that they're going. Now, moving to the Browns at number 6. There are a lot of ways that they could go here, and I think, a lot of mocks I've seen have them taking a receiver. That's fine. A lot of them have them taking offensive linemen. They need help on defense. They've got a lot of problems on this roster. They obviously don't have a certain quarterback situation, but I think the biggest, most urgent need for them right now is to fix the offensive line, to try to see what they've at least got in Shedeur Sanders and build it for the future. And so with that, they take the best pure left tackle prospect who's currently on the board and in the draft. And is this a bit of a reach for him? I think so. I mean, he's not a guy that was a big name or was considered to be a top 10 prospect up until recently. But you saw, the kind of athlete he is, the kind of pedigree he comes from, playing for Kirby down there, and if you need a left tackle, that this feels like the most likely guy to go off the board first is Monroe Freeling out of Georgia. So, moving on to number 7. Now, the Commanders are another team that could go a lot of ways. I've heard a lot of people say that if somehow Jeremiah Love falls that far, and look, I don't want people to think that I hate Jeremiah Love, because I really don't. I think he could be an outstanding running back in this draft. I think he's maybe just a tier below Bijan Robinson, who were the other elite running backs prospects we've had? Saquon Barkley. I think he's just like a tad below those guys. And I was very high on Jahmyr Gibbs in that draft with Robinson as well. But it's not that I don't like him, it's just all of what I said before. He needs to go to the right situation. Now, is Washington the right situation? They've got a good quarterback, they've got a decent offensive line, but they're still missing a lot. They've got, outside of Terry McLaurin, their number 2 receiver right now is Treylon Burks, if that tells you anything. So that offense is still a work in progress, but the defense, dear Lord, is the real problem in Washington. Jaden Daniels, if he can get back to his rookie form, can fix a lot of those problems for you, make up for them on the offensive side, but they have got to address that defense. And I think this guy right here is maybe the best player in the draft. Again, not a premium position, but it is a position where the Commanders could need help. It is a guy that they could build around, that could be like the focal point, the leader of their defense for years to come. And, remember Dan Quinn, what was such a big part of his success in Seattle was having Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor there to sort of be those safety and this guy is honestly, I guess he's probably more, he's not an elite coverage guy. He's good enough. I think you're probably not going to put him like in a lot of man-to-man situations against slots or tight ends, but he's one of the best tacklers in the draft. He's one of the best athletes in the draft. He's one of the smartest players in the draft. He's just overall, I think, like if you watched him play at Alabama and at Ohio State, you know what you're getting with this dude. And it feels like even though it's maybe a lower value position, he's one of the safer picks in the draft. Moving on to the New Orleans Saints. Now, this is another one I thought a lot about because they need a lot of things, and I think this pick may be kind of telling as to like what they really think and how they feel about Tyler Shuck. Like, do they want to give him another receiver to go along with Olave? Do they want to upgrade the offensive line? Do they want to take Jeremiah Love? Do they think they're in that position? But in the end, it felt like there's one guy who's still sitting there that would really help the Saints, and that's an absolute game wrecker in Reuben Bain Jr. And look, I know he's got the short arms. Everybody freaks out about that, and I'm not saying that that's nothing. It matters, and especially when you're talking about guys on the offensive and defensive line, that does matter. But if you watched him play, this guy played against some of the best competition in football. Like, even being in the ACC, I mean, you saw they beat Notre Dame. They played all the way through the college football playoff, beating elite teams, him going up against elite prospects, and elite offensive lines. And there were times when it was just, this dude's taking over. There's nothing they can do about him. And will he be able to do that at the NFL level? Probably not to that degree. But he will certainly be a game wrecker and a difference maker. And I really think that if he falls outside the top 10, like a lot of mocks are currently projecting, that somebody's going to get a steal with him. Now, the Kansas City Chiefs, sitting there at number 9. Strangely, this is one of those positions where, I've talked about if you're picking inside the top 10, and it's not a pick you traded for, you earned that pick, then you are not in a position to draft a running back. The Chiefs are the rare exception to that. The exception is if you are just a team that is objectively better than your draft spot, but for whatever reason you had a really bad year, your quarterback got hurt, whatever happened, and you just had a really down year and you ended up here. The Chiefs are the perfect example of that. The only problem is they just spent a bunch of money on the Super Bowl MVP Kenneth Walker. Now, does that necessarily preclude them from taking Love here? Or does it prevent them from it? No, not necessarily. But it does feel like, given that they have other needs on the team, it seems unlikely that they would do that. And I don't know that they were going to anyway. I know everybody has said that the Chiefs signed him because they thought that Jeremiah Love was already going to be gone. I think the Saints signed Travis Etienne because they assumed that Jeremiah Love was already going to be gone. I think it's just as likely that they signed these guys because they liked these guys and they weren't super convinced about taking a running back that high. So the Chiefs just traded away and really lost their entire secondary, either to free agency or trades. So I'm going to give him the best corner in the draft, and I know he didn't play last year. God knows I am fully aware that he did not play last year, and yeah, I had feelings about that all year last year. But Jermon McCoy is the number one corner in this draft. And I get that people like Delane, and he's got talent. The Terrell kid has talent. Jermon McCoy is a shutdown corner that Steve Spagnuolo would absolutely love, who could come in and pretty quickly take over as their number one corner. And I'm not saying he's going to, just immediately be everything Trent McDuffie was, but this is that kind of guy who can come in and be a legitimate shutdown man-to-man corner. We know they love to play man-to-man in Kansas City, and with all of his exotic blitzes and whatnot. So I would go with McCoy here at number 9 for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, at number 10, we've got the Cincinnati Bengals. Luckily for them, this is kind of maybe a best-case scenario. It's a very good situation for them because there's still a couple of those elite-tier prospects that I mentioned sitting on the board. Even though they don't play those premium positions, now you're starting to get to where you're not as worried about that. And the Bengals, even more maybe than the Commanders, need to fix their defense. I mean, God knows they've got their issues and had their issues on the offensive line, but it feels like there are going to be a lot of good, especially interior offensive linemen available in the second and third round of this draft. But what they could really use is a guy who would just redefine their defense, could be come in, be their guy in the middle, be the leader of that defense, be their sort of, he's drawn a lot of comparisons to Fred Warner. That can fix a lot of problems on defense, and he can be the guy that you can start to build that defense around. And if the Bengals can actually play even average defense and Joe Burrow can actually stay healthy, just imagine how good that team could be and how far they could go. So I'm going to go ahead and take a quick break. And I know I've been talking for, actually, how long have I been talking? Yeah, already half an hour. I spent a lot of time on that Titans pick, but yeah, I had to. All right, so I am going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in a few minutes with, maybe in a few days. I don't know. I'll figure it out, but I'll be back soon. All right, love you, bye.